You are listening to The Underground Subway with host David Alston, a podcast dedicated to giving you the strategies to live a free and better life. Here is David Alston.
Hi, I'm David Alston, host of The Underground Subway. Welcome to another edition of The Underground Subway. I'm excited to be with you, excited that you joined this podcast. As we say every time we get together, I'm excited about offering whatever strategy and tool, whatever we need to offer to make life better for one another. The name of the Underground Subway stems from the fact that my grandmother was first cousins with Harriet Tubman, and she led the Underground Railroad. And so here in 2022, we lead the Underground Subway. What does that mean? That means that we're going to do any and everything we can to help remove the chains and bonds of life that hold us down, whether it's the bonds and chains of our health, financially, spiritually, emotionally, whatever it is that is holding us down, what is stopping us from living a better, peaceful life here. We're going to try to do all that we can to lead everyone that we can to liberty. And so every week we come back with special guests, and these guests give us their insight, their expertise, and what is most important to me is their passion for life and passion to help you, my friends, to live a better life. And so to this particular podcast, I have a special guest that I'm excited to talk with, and I want you to hear my guest. I want you to hear his voice. He is just a ball of fire. Just talking to him for a brief moment, I'm telling you, get you all excited. I think, and I may be a little biased here, but I think he has one of the greatest first names that anyone could ever have. Dave Combs is with us. And let me tell you a little bit about Dave, and then we're going to just jump into conversation. Dave is a songwriter. He's a photographer, an entrepreneur, and author with 4 decades of experience writing over 120 songs and creating 14 albums of soothing, relaxing, instrumental piano music. That is my favorite. I love it. His songwriting began with the now popular standard Rachel's Song. Rachel's Song. We're going to ask him about that in a little bit. His soothing, relaxing music has been played millions of times worldwide on radio, satellite, and over the internet streaming media, and it continues to touch the lives of millions of people all over the world. He's also the author of the best-selling new book, Touched by the Music: How the Story and Music of Rachel's Song Can Change Your Life. I want you to join me in welcoming Mr. Dave Combs to the Underground Subway. Welcome, my friend, and thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you, David, for inviting me. As soon as we connected this evening, I knew we were going to have a good time and have a lively discussion, and I like you already.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It must be the music. A little bit about myself. I started playing the trumpet in the 3rd grade. Ooh. And I just fell in love with the trumpet in 3rd grade. And ironically, my children don't believe this, but my 3rd grade music teacher is still alive and kicking and still playing the trumpet. And I've just been a music lover. Not necessarily just saying that I love a particular genre. I love music. I love instrumental music more so than the words. It's just something soothing about music. And so when I saw that you were a musician and wrote those songs, I said, yeah, we've got to have him on the Underground Subway. Thank you for joining us. And how did you write? How did you start writing? What prompted you to write?
Why don't we go all the way back to my humble upbringing back in the mountains of East Tennessee. I grew up in a rural part of East Tennessee in the Appalachian Mountains, in a community where there wasn't a lot of money there wasn't a lot of wealth, but there was a lot of community and love and comrades, just communities loving each other and being around each other, and there was a lot of music. Okay. Music was a big thing in my family. My mother and my father both played the piano. electricity was even anywhere in the country. So she played the old pump organ where you pump it with your feet,
Wow.
to get the air going through the organ.
Wow.
And then she also loved to play this instrument. Now I know we're on audio only, but let me just play a strum of it and see if you can tell what this instrument is.
That let's see, that has to be, I could see it, not the harp.
Auto harp.
Auto harp.
Auto harp. Auto harp.
I told you I love music.
This is, I'm holding in my hand, for those that are just listening, I'm holding in my hand my grandmother's auto harp that she gave to me when she passed away. She wrote a note in the case, and I have the note right here. It says, "This harp belongs to David Combs," and it's signed Granny Estelle Combs, my grandmother.
Wow.
So I inherited her auto harp, and some of my earliest memories, David, are going to Granny's house. And when I'd get there, this is when I was maybe a teenager, and she would hand me her auto harp, and she'd say, "David, would you tune this up for me?" I say, "Yes, ma'am, I sure will." So I'd sit there and I'd tune it up to where it sounded really good, and I'd hand it back to her. And then she would start playing that thing and singing Amazing Grace or the Old Rugged Cross, whatever her favorite songs were, What a Friend We Have in Jesus, all these kind of lovely songs that she loved. She could make that thing talk.
Wow.
So, and she and her husband, my grandfather, they were on a tobacco farm in southwestern Virginia. My mother, on her side of the family, they grew up on a tobacco farm in the same county in southwest Virginia. So there wasn't a lot of money around. There was very humble beginnings, but they had everything else they needed. They had plenty to eat. They never went hungry, that's for sure. And they had a lot of love and a lot of music around. So I grew up in a family that loved music, and so I guess it's in my bones.
well, Dave, how do you think, if we're right now we're in the midst of living in a, you talk about your humble beginnings, how people were back then. I can go back to my beginnings and go back in life, and but we're living in a different age now when it's so much violence and hatred and bitterness in the world. How can music help to make life better for people?
Well, I think if more people would spend time listening to music than all the negative stuff that you get over all the news media, no matter what channel you turn on, the whole world would be better off. Yes. But, music has a calming influence on people. Whether, I don't care what kind of, almost any genre that you're listening to, except for maybe the really upbeat, the very super tempo kind of music. But I'm talking about instrumental, whether it's classical music or jazz. I love jazz, or instrumental piano music or trumpet. The brass music sounds that I know you play the trumpet. Yes, so that I love brass music. In fact, just a quick aside, on Memorial Day at 3:00 in the afternoon is National Taps Across America.
Yes.
And anybody that plays a trumpet or a horn is supposed to, if you're so inclined, get out at 3:00 sharp on Memorial Day afternoon and play taps. Now, I don't play the trumpet, but my synthesizer sitting back here behind me, it plays a good trumpet. Let me tell you, I hooked up my big speaker on my front porch, and I wired it up to my synthesizer, and at 3:00 sharp on Monday, I played taps from my front porch. And my neighbors came out on their lawns, put their hand over their heart, and stood there while the taps were being played.
Wow.
That was just so special to me that they did that. So
that's amazing. One of my favorite instruments, and I don't know how well you can hear it, but one of my favorite, I actually played this, you mentioned taps.
Isn't that beautiful?
That is
That
just beautiful. And what I love about one of my love for music is not just the trumpet playing the taps, but the background. Um, at an early age, I really learned a lot about life with music because you listen to a song like that, and I played the trumpet, but I loved the strings instruments because of the background. And I learned at an early age through my teacher that in life, it's often that background of the supportive people in life that really make life beautiful,
isn't
not
that
always the
true?
person up front. And so when I hear a song like that, most people will hear the trumpet playing the taps, but I can hear uh the the tuba or the trombone or whatever in the background, you know.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
uh,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
Dave, talk to us about in the bio it talks about your song that you wrote entitled Rachel's Song. What is that about?
Well, I was 33 years old when I wrote my first song. It's hard to believe. I know I grew up around music. It's still a mystery to me why it took me 33 years to write one, but I did. And I didn't really even, David, sit down to write it. I sat down at my piano one evening after work, and that's the way I relax. When I get home from a hard day's work, I would sit down at the piano and start playing, and all of a sudden the stress levels just go way down, and my mind is on the music, not the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
That evening, I sat down at my piano and I played this song. I did not intend to write a song. I put my hands on the keyboard and I played it. And I don't know where it came from, except that I feel like it was an inspiration. It was a gift to me. I'm almost embarrassed to say that I wrote that song because I just played it.
Right.
And I was the first one to play it, I guess. But I played that song. It was beautiful. It sounded great on the piano. I didn't even think about it as writing a song. My wife Linda came home from work a couple of days later, and she says, "Dave, what is this song I've got stuck in my head? I've been humming it all day long, and you play it on the piano all the time. What's the name of this?" And she hummed a little bit of it, and I said, "Well, it doesn't have a name, Linda. It's just something I made up on the piano." Well, she got all excited and said, "Wow, have you written it down?" I said, "No, I've got it up here in my mind. It's not going anywhere." She said, "No, you better write that down. Something might happen to you, and that song would be gone." I said, "Okay." So I got a piece of manuscript paper and I wrote it down. And I have that piece of paper for you to see right here, and I'm holding it up, but I know the listeners can't see it. But it's the melody and the chords just written out on a simple piece of manuscript
Wow.
paper.
Wow.
And that's all it is. It's key of C, just as, and the chords are C, A minor, D minor ninth, and D minor seventh, and so forth. Just a simple progression of a simple melody with beautiful chords. So I wrote the music down, put it in my piano bench, and I played it every once in a while. And we tried to think of a name for it.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing ever fit. So 2 years later, some friends of ours had a little baby girl named Rachel, and they asked me and Linda to be her godparents. And it was at Rachel's christening service that Linda and I are sitting there in the pews in the church with the family and the minister. It was a private service. And up at the front of the church on the platform was a beautiful baby grand piano. And so I kept looking at that piano all through the service. And when the service was about to end, I punched Linda and I said, "Hey, what do you think about me playing this song now as part of the service? It just seems like the right time."
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "That's a great idea." So I went up to the family and the minister and said, "Would it be okay if I played a song on the piano?" They said, "Oh, sure." So everybody sat back down. I walked over to the piano and sat down and I started playing. And I played this song and I got almost through, and I could hear in the audience people clearing their throat, a few little sniffles here and there, and I noticed that even my eyes were starting to have a few teardrops coming out. Very touching experience, and and the music just kind of pulled it out of you. And when I finished playing that song, even the sound hadn't even completely died away at the piano. I said, "From now on, this song will be called Rachel's Song in her honor."
Wow.
And that, David, is how the song got its name. And so I went from not even knowing I'd written a song to having a song named after a sweet little baby girl named Rachel.
Wow, that's amazing. That's that's amazing. I often think about how music can really pull out all of these wonderful emotions from you. You know, we have a few listeners that may be listening that are writers themselves. How did you get your music played on radio stations all over the country? Not just, you know, it's one thing to go to a local station and say, well, here, I'm a local writer, play. How did you get your music to be played all over the country?
Well, that was a lot of work, to put it in just a few words, but it really happened by, like you said, I started with a local station, a friend of mine that had a radio program. It was a big band jazz program, and he was the DJ, and he loved Rachel's song, and he played it as part of his program one Saturday. And when he played it, the phone bank at the radio station lit up. They had one of these, 12 or 15 phone lines you can call in on. Mm-hmm. They all lit up. People were calling in. What is that song you're playing? Manager after that, he called me and he said, Dave, I've been in radio for over 20 years and I have never had this happen to me before. He said, when he played your song, Rachel's song, the phone bank lit up and it never stopped.
Wow.
He said, this song is just, it's going to go somewhere. So that was kind of my real encouragement to say, well, I shouldn't be just satisfied that I heard it on the radio or locally, which was that was a big deal too, but I needed to get it out and get it other places. So he encouraged me to contact other easy listening stations around the country and get them to play it, which I did. I found out their phone numbers and I would call them get a hold of the program director and send him a copy of Rachel's song. And sure enough, almost everybody loved Rachel's song. They put it in their programming. And then some stations even told me that they didn't do their own programming. They said there's a company in Chicago called Bonneville Broadcasting that programs it for them. I said, oh, well, okay, maybe I need to contact them, which I did. Got a hold of the man who was in charge of easy listening instrumental music for Bonneville. He loved Rachel's song. And he let me know real quickly. He said, Dave, I'm going to put this song in rotation on all of our easy listening stations, wow, all across the country. And they had programmed over 200 radio stations. Wow. So I went from, a few local to boom, all the whole country. And I eventually got it on all 400 easy listening stations that we had back in the 80s and playing Rachel's song. It was the #1 instrumental song on the charts in Los Angeles and Atlanta and St. Louis, Baltimore, New York, all over the place. Wow. And so it kind of, in today's vernacular, it went viral.
You went viral. Wow. That is amazing. I also saw and noticed that you have them in gift shops. And how did you decide to market your music to gift shops as opposed to individuals that have material and they say, well, I want to get it in Walmart or Target or places like that?
Well, my first inclination was that I was so naive. I thought that my song and my music would stand on its own. I thought I would. I thought I could just march into back then we had record stores. There was a store called Record Bar, and we had another one called Tower Records. I thought I could just march in there and say, here, listen to this. And they would just flip over and be just delighted to take this music. It's about the opposite of what happened. I couldn't even get them to return my phone calls most of the time. They didn't want to have anything to do with instrumental music. They wanted country and rock and jazz, and that was about it. If you weren't in those genres, you can just forget it. They weren't interested. So I was disappointed. Now, I would like to take credit for the fact that I ended up selling my music in gift shops, but no, that was not my original idea. I had a co-worker that I was working with at the AT&T at the time, and she had a friend who owned a gift shop. And okay, she loved this friend, the coworker, she loved Rachel's song. And she says, Dave, would you give me a Rachel's song CD to give to my friend that owns this gift shop? I said, well, sure. So she gave a Rachel's song CD to Jane, who owned a gift shop in Old Town Alexandria. Now, if you've been to Alexandria, you know there's King Street and right on the Potomac River, and it's a great tourist place. Well, this shop was called America. She sold anything red, white, and blue. It was patriotic stuff. And she played, John Philip Sousa kind of patriotic music throughout the shop. except when she got my Rachel song CD, she put that in the changer. And when that came on, something really special happened, because I got a phone call in about a couple of days after she got the CD, and she's introduced herself, and she says, Dave, I have a big problem. Everybody in my store wants to buy that music that I'm playing, and I don't have it. Would you sell me some? And well, I had never sold any at retail to any retail establishment before, so I had to even figure out what's a good wholesale price, and think on my feet real quick.
All right.
So we reached at an agreement on a price, and she said, "Can you bring me some tonight?" I said, "Yep. After work, I'll box you up some and I'll bring them to you." So Linda and I jump in the car that evening and go down to Old Town Alexandria and take her a box of CDs and tapes, cassette tapes. And I thought, well, this is going to be interesting, because it was a great shop up on an upstairs on King Street, right in a great location. So a couple of days later, my phone rings again. This time it's Jane, and she says, "Dave, I got even a bigger problem. Those are all gone, and I need some more quick." And so I said, "Okay, I'll bring." She said, "Double the order this time. Send me twice as many."
Good problem to have.
Yeah, good problem. Yeah. So I boxed her up a big box of tapes and CDs, take them to her. And Linda and I made that trip to Old Town Alexandria every week for well over a year. She sold thousands of copies of tapes and CDs out of that one little gift shop. And that was the spark that started my idea of selling my music through gift shops all over the country.
Well, Dave, how has, I mentioned when I first came on that the difference in the Underground Railroad and the Underground Subway is the fact that we're in 2022, we don't have the railroad, we have the subway. In your opinion, I listened to your story, you talked about the tapes and they ran out. We're in 2022 where no one has, I'm going to go, I sincerely hope I'm not really dating myself with this next comment, but we're no longer in the days of the 8-track.
You're right. You got that right.
I think I'm dating myself with that because I remember the 8-track. We don't have the 8-track. We don't have the cassettes. We're not really doing CDs as much. And I do notice that there seems to be a movement back toward there's a movement back toward the vinyl records now. More people are buying vinyl. Yes. How has the evolution from the cassette and the CD that you started off with to now this digital movement where everything is Apple Music or what have you, has that affected your music or you as a business person? Has that affected you in any way?
It has affected me in a huge way, because obviously I rode the wave of when CDs first came around in the late 80s, and they really kind of peaked around 1995 was the peak of their time, and then they went downhill. And of course, cassette tapes went totally away at the end of the 1990s. And then the internet came along around 1995, and as soon as that happened, I'm a technical person, so that was my job. So I built my own website as soon as I was able to in 1995. So I have converted my music to digital formats as soon as that format became available. But as the CD sales declined and the digital aspect of it started to rise, you may remember this, that Napster came along.
Wow.
And basically just about...
Wow.
Bottom, because the perceived value of music was so low. These young teenagers were saying, "Why should I pay $15 for a CD when I can download it on Napster for free?"
Right.
Well, that was almost permanent damage to the music business, and it took the courts way too long to get that stopped, but they finally did. And it was only when Apple Music came on with iTunes around the turn of the century there, about 2000, 2001, that downloads of music for 99 cents a song, or maybe $12 or so for a whole album, it gave the music business a restart, if you want to think of it that way. And so I was able to ride into that as well, because I had my music in that format available, and soon as I found out about an iTunes, I figured out I got to get my music in there. Mm-hmm. And when Pandora came around, I said, I got to figure out how to get my music on Pandora, which I did. Mm-hmm. Spotify, same thing with Spotify, and all these other platforms. So you've got a total evolution now from a physical product in the 80s and 90s to now almost a total digital virtual product. In fact, you don't even need to download anything these days. You just talk to your speaker over there in the corner and say, hey, so-and-so, play Rachel's song by Dave Combs, and boom, there it comes.
Yeah, so what would you say to, so are you saying that an individual, do you need more than just the music talent, the ability to write? Listening to you sounds almost as if you're saying not only do you need to be talented with music, but you also need to have a business side of you that's talented to be an entrepreneur.
You do. I mean, there are tons and tons, as you know, wonderful musicians out there that they can play circles around me. They can write circles around me with writing music. But if they don't have the business acumen to know how to take what they've created and turn it into a profitable way to make some money off of it, make a living, mm-hmm. it's very, very difficult. And so you have to have both sides of that coin. You create the music, but you also have to have a way of marketing. Sounds almost too commercial about it, but you have to have a way of exposing that music to the masses. Right. And only when you do that, then you can have some appeal and draw, and people will want to either download it or to listen to it by streaming. So you have to find yourself ways of publicizing and getting the word out about your music. Now, if you're a beginning artist of some kind, you're going to have to do a lot of time in the trenches, so to speak, with local clubs or local venues, or if it's religious music, you're going to have to travel around and perform at churches or conferences or whatever. But you're going to have to work your way through exposing that music to a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And now we at least do have the venue of publishing our music online. You can put a song up on YouTube. Everybody can have a YouTube login and put music up there that you write, and then you're challenged with, how do I tell people about my YouTube channel?
Right, exactly.
or a podcast, or a podcast, for example.
Right.
How do people find out about David Alston's podcast?
Right.
and want to listen to every episode that you put out. Right. That's a challenge for your marketing. You've got to figure out how to do that. I mean, otherwise you're just kind of talking to yourself.
Right. Or a few people that you have a relationship with is, let me listen to it, What would you say to someone just starting off saying, you know what, I think I can play the piano a little bit, and I want to create, my own, I want to create some music, whether I mentioned how we're evolving. I had a young man about a week ago mentioned to me that he would like for me to help him. He wants to create a CD. Mm-hmm. What would you say to someone that says, I want to create a project? What's that first thing, the first step that they need to?
Well, the first thing they're going to have to do is hopefully create a good product. Whether it's a demo, a song, a good first song. Like my first song was Rachel's song. Right. I was just fortunate that song was blessed, and it got me off to a great start. Mm-hmm. But you have to start somewhere. Mm-hmm. And so you need to fine tune and hone your craft. You need to be the best. If you're going to write songs, you need to study songwriting, and you need to get around other songwriters, and you need to be inspired by other songwriters and learn every day and practice your craft. And so that's one of the things you have got to do. And then once you have a product or a group of songs, like your friend that wants to do a whole album, obviously he's written 10, 12, 15 songs, whatever, to do an album. Then you find out, how do I go about getting this into an album format? And these days and times, it's not usually a physical album, although most people would want a CD of their music or something. But you can do it all online, as far as that's concerned. Mm-hmm. You can publish your music online, but you've got to learn how to do that, and then learn how to publicize your music on LinkedIn or YouTube or all the social media, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, or all the the different ways of letting people know about your music. And so you've got to spend a lot of time, not just with your music, and you do need to spend time on it, but you've also got to educate yourself on what's going on with the industry and how other people are succeeding. Learn from other people. You know, today we can find out about just about anybody on Google. You can just search and you can find them on YouTube or whatever and listen to them, learn from them.
Well, Dave, let me ask you this. Boy, time is flying. We're running out of time, but I've got to get this question in.
Okay, all right.
I was born and raised in Philadelphia, and I tell all of my guests here this same analogy and story. I was born in Philadelphia, and there was a movie called Philadelphia with Denzel Washington and Tom Hanks. And Denzel Washington was an attorney, and he asked one of the witnesses, he said, explain it to me like I'm a 6-year-old. So I'm going to ask you, explain this to me like I'm a 6-year-old. How difficult is it to write an original song without me getting the song information from a song that I've already heard?
Part of it I think has to be a gift and an inspiration.
Okay.
You're not really trying to copy something else. But I know a lot of people, and I can tell, we could talk for a long time tonight about examples of where people that were not professional songwriters, were not musicians, so to speak, but they had created a song. They had written a song in their head, and it was one that they wrote basically. And it doesn't need to stop there. And you don't need to say, well, I don't know music. I don't know how to get it in any kind of form that somebody could play. You can always find somebody that will help you to do that. There are musicians, there are musicians that are probably in your church, in your community, probably even some studios around someplace. Talk to somebody. They will say, I've got this song and I just want to know, is it worth doing something with? Let them see what they can do and help you. Move your music to the point where it can be something.
Well, my friend, I want to thank you so much. There's an old saying that says, time flies when you're having fun. And I mean, I've got one final question for you. Would you be willing to let's do this again?
Absolutely, David. I know we're running out of time. Only got about 4 minutes and 30 seconds to go,
Yes,
but
sir.
I'd be delighted to do part 2 with you sometime.
Right.
I got a lot more stories, as you can tell from my book. It's 254 pages of
Yes,
stories.
we're going to come back. We're going to talk about that book next time. But again, I hope I'm not dating myself when I say that one of my favorite television characters was a cartoon named Bugs Bunny. And whenever Bugs met someone, Bugs would say, I think this is the start of a beautiful relationship. So I'm saying that tonight. I hope this is the start of a beautiful relationship.
Well, I hope so too. And
thank you, my friend.
We will we'll do that. So you just let me know when we want to do part 2 and we will do it.
All right. Well, everyone, I want to thank you for joining us tonight for the Underground Subway. I want to give a special thank you to my guest, David Combs, who really inspired all of us tonight with so much wonderful information. I'm telling you, this is one of those podcasts that you go back and listen to again and just gain so much from it. I want to thank him and for taking time, and I'm playing as I go. If it's okay with him, I'm playing in the background a little bit of Rachel's song.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yes, beautiful song.
Thank you. I need to tell everybody that you can find that song on my website at combsmusic.com. And there's a link right in the middle of my homepage that says play Rachel's song. And when you push that button, you'll be hearing exactly what you're going to hear right now, Rachel's song.
All right. Well, my friends, as we go, again, thank you for joining us for the Underground Subway. And in leaving, before we go, I want to challenge you. I want to issue a personal challenge to you tonight, before you go to bed, before you close your eyes and sleep and rest for tomorrow. I want to challenge you to find a mirror. Look yourself in the face. Look yourself in the eyes in that mirror and ask yourself one question. Today, did I do something to make this world a better place? Or did I just waste another day? We'll see you next time on the Underground Subway.